Part 26. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 254. Go find the target yourself, Garen nodded thoughtfully. Are there any specific conditions and requirements? Just don't make it too complicated. All you need to learn is the basic framework at the beginning, and then slowly expand it. Aining said, okay, go ahead. There is still one morning to make what you want to create. Find the totem, and remember, it must be something you need and can use. Every creature has its own unique ability, don't choose randomly. Yes. Garen nodded respectfully. Then I'm going to wash up first. When you catch it later, we'll start making the formal demonstration. Aining yawned, turned around and walked out of the room. Galen found a large glass bottle and a pair of pigskin gloves, then went downstairs and left the small building. In the morning, there were many young men in the town. Most of them carried bows, arrows, hunting knives, and wore clothes made of fur. They came in and out of the town in groups. Some of them were carrying wild beasts they had just beaten on their backs. Garen walked out along the main road of the town. The grey robe he was wearing made the residents of the town a little curious. Several children who were chasing each other suddenly hid in the corner when they saw him approaching, watching him secretly and warily. Walking out of the town, there is a vast rolling hilly grassland outside, with clusters of small woods scattered sparsely, most of which are short-footed trees that are not dense enough. The emerald green woods and dark green grassland are almost connected together. Some white butterflies are flying around the small flowers on the grassland. A group of unknown birds fly in the sky from time to time, making a high-pitched and weak cry. Not far from the town, there is a small river 3 to 4 meters wide. This is the source of the famous Red River. It is the melted snow water from the towering snow peaks in the distance. It is extremely clean. Galen walked to the edge of the Red River, squatted down, and began to look through the grass and wet soil. What kind of totem do I need? He asked himself. What kind of totem will help me? He pushed aside the grass, and a group of black ants slowly crawled across the black soil. He looked at it without making a move. As his eyes moved, he fell on another dark green blade of grass. On the willow leaf-shaped grass blade, lying quietly, a fat green caterpillar with burrs all over its body and 4 small black eyes looked lazy and lifeless. On a small yellow flower on the right, there is a black bee with a thin waist sitting on it. It is crawling around in the stamens the size of a fingernail. Its legs are covered with yellow pollen, and it is obviously picking pollen. Ants, caterpillars, wild bees. Garen shook his head slightly. It's too weak. Although it has a simple structure, it won't be of much help to me even if it succeeds. He stood up and continued walking towards the distance of the grassland hills. If you want to be helpful to me, it is best to have a certain amount of strength, so that it can play a supporting role in life. It must be able to fly, and it can play a role in reporting and detection and early warning. It must have offensive capabilities and certain defensive capabilities. In this way, the best ones are birds. He looked far away at a few woods not far away, where the crisp and clear sounds of birds kept coming from there. After crossing several hills, he quickly picked the largest forest and walked into it. The forest was lush and green, and there was a refreshing feeling. Several children were wandering around in it, picking up something. These children were dressed in shabby clothes, looked disheveled, and were thin and pitiful. Carrying a huge basket on his back, some contained some plants, wild fruits, and the like, while others were empty with just a little. When Garen came in, he only made these children look up, but no one paid attention to him and continued to pick and dig with their heads down. There were many birds perching above the forest, and they kept making noisy intermittent calls. Garen raised his head to distinguish carefully. There were many birds above the woods. There were 5 or 6 species, some large and some small. Most were black, and only a few were green and blue. It needs to be slightly larger, aggressive, and has good flying speed. Garen found that he didn't recognize any bird. He looked around and his eyes fell on a dirty little boy from afar. This little boy wore the same gray linen clothes as the others, carried a large basket on his back, and had messy hair. He only had a green parrot standing on his shoulder. He looked different from other children. Garen walked over and stood next to the little boy. "Is this the bird you raised?" he asked in as gentle a tone as possible. "Yes, sir." "Do you have any orders?" The little boy stood up from his bent position and looked at him doubtfully. This strange adult looked around in the forest, wondering what he was doing here. "I would like to ask, do you know what species of birds are here?" Galen took out a small copper bullet and passed it over. The little boy immediately hurriedly caught it. "A copper may not buy much elsewhere, but you can still buy some snacks here." He immediately beamed and smiled. "Bird? I'm familiar with this." "Familiar with you, bird?" "Familiar with you, bird," the green parrot on his shoulder shouted loudly. "Shut up, Hans," the little boy said in embarrassment. "If you keep doing this, I won't give you dinner. Try it carefully to me. If you say it well, I'll give you another one." Garen looked at the green parrot with a smile. "No problem, my sister likes raising birds the most. Later, after she left, I started to like it too. I still know a lot about this." The little boy patted his chest. "Get to know your sister. Get to know your sister." "Shut up," the little boy blushed and flicked the green parrot's head hard. Garen smiled as he looked at this combination of man and bird, feeling very harmonious. "I want to find a bird that flies fast, is strong, and has a certain degree of aggression." "Do you know what kind of bird there is?" he stated his conditions. "You have found the right person." The little boy wiped away the snot that was about to run out. "According to your requirements, the most suitable person is definitely eagle." "Eagle? Which eagle is the fastest?" Garen nodded and asked. "The eagles we have here are not slow. And most of them are cunning blue eagles. They are small and very fast. It can scratch people's skin in the blink of an eye. It has the sharpest claws and likes to steal everyone's little ones." "Chicken," the little boy answered in detail. "Are there any other birds? Or it doesn't have to be a bird?" Garen asked with a frown. Although Blue Eagle met the requirements, he didn't like this kind of eagle that only stole chickens. "If it doesn't have to be a bird," the little boy scratched his hair. "Oh. There is another one, but it's not a bird, it's an insect." "Oh? What is it?" Garen showed an interested expression. "Fluorescent butterfly," the little boy said with an uncomfortable look on his face. "This thing is as big as a basin, strong, beautiful, and weird. Generally, butterflies are not very fast, but they are very fast. Ordinary birds are even faster. Only eagles can compare with them. And the most annoying thing is that they are highly poisonous. If a person accidentally inhales their powder, they will be paralyzed and poisoned all over the body, and if they are a little bit serious, they will die. Very scary." "Oh. There is this kind of butterfly. Where is it? Take me to see it." Garen suddenly became interested. "I won't go. If you keep walking in that direction, go straight, you will soon see those nasty butterflies. They are full of poison and have taken over the entire small forest. What you see is huge. Blue butterflies without any variegated blue butterflies, then they must be them." The little boy simply pointed in the direction and said, "Thank you." Garen took out the second copper in his hand and strode towards the direction pointed by the little boy. Leaving this grove, Garen kept walking in the direction pointed by the boy. His pace was very fast. More and more dense groves appeared around him. The traces of human activities gradually became less and less. There were wheel marks and footsteps on the ground. The seal quickly disappeared. In the distance, you can gradually see the white snow peaks towering into the clouds. Soon he saw the fluorescent butterfly the boy was talking about. Under the shade of some dark trees, blue butterflies glowed with light blue fluorescence and danced in the shadows. It's like being sprinkled with fluorescent powder. These butterflies fly silently, the smallest is the size of a palm, and the largest has a wingspan of nearly 1 meter. The long, furry body is clearly exposed, and it looks creepy. Garin picked up a stone from the ground, narrowed his eyes, and threw it away. Laugh. The stone ripped through the air like a sharp arrow and accurately hit the largest fluorescent butterfly. Suddenly, as if a hornet's nest had been poked, large fluorescent butterflies suddenly emerged from the surrounding woods and swooped toward Galleon overwhelmingly, as if the blue light spots instantly connected into an ocean. Garin lifted his foot, and with a crash, a large cloud of black soil mixed with grass clippings spread out in all directions, hitting the surrounding fluorescent butterflies like raindrops. In the popping sound, blue light spots fell and dimmed one after another, and a pungent smell of poisonous powder filled the air. Garin held his breath, stepped in a flash, and appeared in front of the largest fluorescent butterfly. He picked it up with his gloved hand and stuffed it into a glass bottle, turned around and left. Before he had gone far, a large group of blue fluorescent butterflies suddenly appeared behind him. They were extremely fast, and they were able to vaguely catch up with the galloping galleons when flying in a non-straight line. Garin looked back, exerted force on his feet again, and accelerated instantly, leaving the fluorescent butterflies behind. His whole body was shaken, and countless tiny blue poisonous powders were quietly knocked down and blown behind him by the wind. It wasn't until all the poisonous powder disappeared that he resumed breathing. He lifted the glass bottle and looked at it. The fluorescent butterfly inside was not completely dead yet, and was moving slightly in the bottle. He was quite satisfied with this kind of butterfly. It was not slow, highly poisonous, and powerful. Compared with ordinary bugs that would die if stepped on, this kind of butterfly had a thick cuticle on its surface, and its strength was equivalent to that of a mouse. Look. Sending letters and the like is absolutely no problem. The only shortcoming is that it is not concealed enough, but I am still satisfied. Garin recalled the blue-scaled snake he encountered before. Compared with that kind of biological totem, the fluorescent butterfly is a flying creature, and it is not in the diet of eagles. Even if it's a little more conspicuous, and the other advantages are enough to cover up such flaws. In the laboratory, Aining wiped his mouth carefully with a white towel, while picking up the bottle of fluorescent butterflies and observing it. This is my first time making this kind of butterfly, but I have studied butterflies before. Although it is not in depth, I still have some experience. He put down the bottle. Are you sure you want fluorescent butterflies? Of course. Garin stood aside and nodded after hearing the words. Well, a silver lantern master will have a core totem, an auxiliary general totem. As a teacher, I can make the first totem for you for free, which is regarded as a gift to you. However, if you want to change the totem again, you have to research and manufacture it yourself. Do you understand? Understood. Garin nodded. Okay, let's get started. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 255. Enning nodded and placed the butterfly bottle next to the microscope. Making a totem is actually using silver to simulate a living thing. How to simulate it? We must first understand the physiological structure of the living thing before we can successfully imitate it. He stretched out his index finger and slowly moved it in the air. The fingertips drew streaks of silvery white light in the air, forming silvery white lines. The lines were slowly dissipating and fading, but before they faded completely, all the silver lines drawn by Aining were completely combined into small six-shaped symbols. All 6 characters are quickly combined freely to form an irregular heraldic-like figure. It's like each oval insect egg is wrapped in a large circle. This figure represents analysis. It is specially used to analyze the structure of living things. It can activate the analytical ability of your brain to achieve the purpose of quickly analyzing living things. We call it analysis technique. These are the three basic techniques of the Silver Lantern Master. Form 1. I will give it to you later. Aining pointed at the figure in the air, and a wave of ripples spread out, and the figure suddenly shot into the fluorescent butterfly inside the bottle. Soon, silver lines appeared on the body of the fluorescent butterfly. Aining explained, generally speaking, analyzing a living thing requires enough knowledge, experience, and accumulation. If the accumulation is insufficient, the analysis technique will not be able to get many results. After all, this is just a quick analysis. It is only suitable for the Silver Lantern Master who is more familiar with this kind of creature. Garen on the side nodded and looked at the butterfly in the bottle attentively. Now I am analyzing the body system of this fluorescent butterfly. What systems does its life consist of? This fluorescent butterfly's survival system, which is the most basic instinct. The flight system and the defense system. 3 parts. It consists of 3 parts in total. And none of them are difficult. Aining flicked his fingers, and the silver lines on the fluorescent butterfly's body suddenly faded away. Next, I will simulate the basic units of the 3-part system respectively. At this time, I need to thoroughly study the biological cells and understand the principles before proceeding. Because I have previously analyzed and studied butterflies, I omitted this step. Aining walked to the long table in the unit factory, bent down and pulled out a large black box from below, opened the lid, and found a whole block of silver bricks inside. It's square and upright, and looks exceptionally smooth and new. Aining picked up a silver brick and started drawing in the air with his other hand. Soon another figure was carved out by him. This time, it was an extremely complex figure, like rows of mathematical formulas, or an article with an unknown text. While Aining was writing the graphics, the silver brick on his other hand began to melt slowly, turning into a mercury-like liquid, floating above his palm. Fusion into a silver ball. This is the second basic technique, manufacturing. I am now manufacturing different units of 3 systems together, so it is a bit more complicated. These graphics are actually used to attract silver and copy it according to the principles and scenes in my brain come out, so we call this technique, copying. Anyway, whatever you want to call it, that's your business. Garen stared closely at the teacher's movements, nodded, and said nothing, for fear of missing any small movements. The silver ball in Aining's hand quickly disintegrated, revealing 3 small balls inside. 3 small balls form a triangle, spinning rapidly, seemingly as a whole. Aining pointed at the 3 small silver balls and said, "These 3 things are the 3 basic units of the system I created. Although they look the same on the outside, in fact the internal structure is very complicated and completely different. What I want to do now, these units are sent to the unit factory, copied in large quantities, and then assembled to form the 3 major simulated systems. Assembly requires the third basic technique, integration." Garen nodded slowly. There are 3 steps in total: analysis, production, and integration. 3 techniques are used to control and guide each one, right? Teacher. That's true. The whole thing looks very simple. All you need to do is use silver to copy and simulate the creature. These 3 spells are the foundation of the foundation, and all totems are made from them. No matter how complicated the totem is, you have to go through these 3 steps. Aining put down the silver ball in his hand. Of course, after all this is completed, there is one final step. Is there one last step? Of course. Aining smiled. After the 3 steps are completed, the integrated silver totem is just a model made of silver, but the living thing itself uses food as energy to support its own activities. And what about the totem? Want to activities naturally require energy. This requires our final step. What is that? Garen asked. Aining dropped a unit into the unit factory and began tweaking and replicating it. While answering, the final step is the infusion of energy, which we also call activation. Activation. Yes, This is the foundation of all Silver Lantern Masters. Activation was also called ignition in ancient times. Ignite the silver lamp. This is the origin of the original title of our Silver Lantern Masters, Aining explained. Then how to ignite it, Garen asked. That is, using our fundamental talents. Aining pointed to his head. Here, everyone who can become a Silver Lantern Master has a special qualification. Our power is intangible and cannot affect any substance except silver. But it has the magical effect of activating silver. No wonder the Silver Lantern Master chose silver as the material. Garen suddenly understood. Activation is actually very simple, but the effect of the lit totem will be different depending on the qualifications, Aining said with a smile. So what are my qualifications? Garen asked slightly expectantly. Unfortunately, your qualifications are very ordinary. I checked you quietly at your home, Aining said frankly with a shrug. In other words, the totem you ignite will not give the totem any additional effects. Galen also expected that Vindman's qualifications were very average, and it would be difficult for his son to have genius-level qualifications. Are the totems of those genius-level Silver Lantern Masters very powerful? I have seen the totem of a top genius Silver Lantern Master, which is an auxiliary owl. This genius's qualifications give the totem 3 times the power of the original body. Aining recalled slightly, there is only half a human on the other side. The tall owl, with its terrifying power, actually confronted another lion totem and finally defeated that lion totem. He tore the lion into pieces. Can an owl defeat a lion? Garen could also imagine such a weird scene and sighed slightly in his heart. Okay, let's not talk about this. You are still far away from the genius level. But your advantage lies in precision cartography. Your strong precision cartography ability is enough to make the totems you create have excellent stability. Master level precision cartography. It will also be very useful for difficult totems and repairing totems. If your craft is successful, you can take over the work of some well-qualified genius Silver Lantern Masters, help them create unactivated totems, and collect profits. Of course, the premise is that you must be able to analyze the principles thoroughly. Aining comforted him. Is this still possible? Garen's eyes lit up and he nodded seriously. Let's start by explaining the principles of analytical techniques to you first. Aining started explaining the details to Garen without any delay. The 2 masters and apprentices gathered in the laboratory for a whole day. Apart from eating, drinking, and defecation, I basically stayed in the laboratory and did not come out. With Aining's careful teaching, Garen gradually understood some of the common sense and secrets of the Silver Lantern Master. Silver Lantern Masters generally have no books and teach by words and deeds in order to prevent their knowledge and inheritance from being leaked. Every Silver Lantern Master can actually be said to be a biochemist. Their qualifications and talents are the tools of research. In 4 days, as the fluorescent butterfly totem slowly took shape, Garen witnessed all the steps in the completion of the entire totem step by step. From analysis to integration, all steps are divided into many small steps, which are extremely precise and detailed. Especially the final integration, under the guidance of his teacher, he used master-level precision drawing to combine step by step into tissues, and then combine the tissues into organs and systems. Finally, it is completely assembled into a complete butterfly totem. Finally, it's time for the final activation. Garen stood quietly in front of a small table in the laboratory, looking at the silver fluorescent butterfly totem on it. The totem is lifeless, without any vitality. It looks like a delicate silver model, beautiful. Garen looked to Enin on the right, who nodded slightly towards him. I'm starting. Garen stretched out his index finger and gently pressed it on the surface of the fluorescent butterfly. Candace Vipera, the pull of all things. Shirvis, silver is above, the end is the new life. As he sang softly, a faint silver halo slowly rose from behind him. Hildapist, where I am, Lance, i.e. live, dot. Garen's voice fell, and the room fell silent. The two of them looked at the silver totem quietly, with a trace of disappointment flashing in their eyes. Did it fail? The same thought emerged in their minds. Garen also understood that if he could not activate it for the first time, it meant that his qualifications might not even be considered ordinary, but only the lowest level. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't work this time, there will be another time. Aining comforted him. Just master-level precision mapping skills are enough to ensure that you will not be bad in the future. This is the only way. Garen nodded, feeling helpless. The silver halo behind him slowly dispersed. Let's go eat first. The two walked out of the laboratory one after the other. Garen took one last look at the butterfly totem on the table and sighed slightly. Turn around and close the door behind you. Snapped. Suddenly a small sound came from behind. Garen was shocked. In an instant, there was a silver light behind him. Countless dazzling silver lights were projected from the room, illuminating his back like a silvery white. Just behind him, the silver butterfly on the table slowly flapped its wings, struggled a few times, then fluttered off the table and began to fly slowly. The silver light on the butterfly gradually faded, turning into a deep blue like a living creature. The fluorescent butterfly flew gently, slowly flew over, and landed on Garen's shoulder. Garen turned his face to look at the butterfly, with a hint of excitement and joy in his heart. Stretch out your index finger, and the butterfly immediately flies up and lands on your finger. Successful. Congratulations. Aining stood at the top of the stairs and turned around to look over, with joy and relief on his face. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 256. After dinner, the master and apprentice left the small building, went out to the town, and came to a remote dark forest. The surrounding woods were deserted and uninhabited, and only the strange sounds of animals flitting through the grass could be heard. Aining was dressed in black, holding a short cane in his hand, tapping it lightly on the ground. A circle of silver ripples spread out from the end of the handstick, instantly crossing the soles of Garen's feet, spreading in all directions, and soon disappeared into the distant woods. It wasn't until the ripples dissipated that Aining raised his cane, turned it slightly, and a silver inscription suddenly appeared on the cane. It looks extremely clear at night. The test can begin now. Aining whispered, I have arranged isolation spells around me so that mortals cannot see here. Although your fluorescent butterfly totem is only an auxiliary totem, it can be replaced at any time in the future. But it is also the first totem has a certain special meaning. It can show you some unique characteristics of the totem. Are you ready? Garen stood opposite him, dressed in grey and black, nodding solemnly. He held a large bottle in his hand, and curled up inside was his first totem, the fluorescent butterfly. I can feel that the totem is like an extra organ, an arm, very flexible and convenient for me. I can choose to control it, or I can choose to give him a simple command and let him complete it by himself. This feeling is amazing, he whispered. Also open the cap of the bottle. Whoosh! The blue shadow flashed, and the fluorescent butterfly instantly jumped out of the bottle and slowly landed on Garen's shoulder. Like a huge blue shawl, it glows with light blue fluorescence at night. Aining paused, and a white lynx slowly walked out from behind. It was 1.5 meters long, like a slightly smaller leopard. It walked silently, with its shoulders raised from side to side, and it licked its lips greedily from time to time. At night, its eyes glowed with a faint green light. Enon reached out and rubbed the bobcat's head. This is my auxiliary totem, Bobcat, he smiled. As long as you can support it, you can make as many auxiliary totems as you want. Anyway, it is your own talent that supports it. Generally, a silver lantern master can only support 1-2. A stronger 4 or 5. Because the auxiliary totem has a simple structure and is easy to make, it is generally used as a consumable tool. He glanced at the blue butterfly on Garen's shoulder. If it's your kind, it should be a little more. Garen nodded and said calmly. I can feel that my spirit can support a few more, probably about 2. That is to say, you can still have 2 auxiliary totems. If you add the core totems, there are 4 totems. This is the limit of your talent. Aining nodded. Okay, let's get started. Let's see how your fluorescent butterfly performs in practice. Good. The two of them stopped talking. At the same time, he stepped back a few steps and gave up the space to the 2 totems. Meow. The white lynx hunched up and let out a sound between a cat and a leopard. Its green eyes stared at the fluorescent butterfly flying opposite. The lynx began to circle slowly around the fluorescent butterfly. The fluorescent butterfly flapped its wings and flew higher and higher, seemingly not intending to confront the bobcat head-on. Suddenly, the fluorescent butterfly pulled up, and with a meow, a white shadow rose into the sky, passed through its previous position, and flew into the air. The fluorescent butterfly immediately flew up in a curve, swaying left and right. Laugh. It escaped another attack from a white shadow and landed calmly on a tree branch. The white lynx pounced twice, seemingly a little annoyed instinctively. It paced and circled under the tree where the fluorescent butterflies were parked, making low purring sounds from time to time. Suddenly, its eyes sharpened, it grabbed its limbs on the tree trunk, and used its strength to rush up the tree. Even the bark of the green tree trunk was scratched to pieces, and the neat and flat trunk had 4 white marks constantly appearing under its claws. The bobcat pounces on the fluorescent butterfly at lightning speed. Click. The branch broke, and the fluorescent butterfly flew up, flying high, but as soon as Bai Ying followed it and jumped up, held it down with one claw, and fell lightly to the ground. But just after the bobcat took a few steps, it staggered and fell to the ground with a fluorescent butterfly in its mouth. Its overening clapped his hands and walked over. It's a draw. The bobcat can bite the fluorescent butterfly with just one force. However, it was also infected with poisonous powder during several attacks. Its internal system was damaged and it could no longer move. So I made a good choice. Garen also came over and asked. To be precise, you did a good job. A real fluorescent butterfly cannot avoid the bobcat attack so easily. It has already won the first kill. Aining shook his head and smiled. However, the fluorescent butterfly's main ability, poison powder, is for self-protection. It has a good flying speed and can fly in the rain. It still has a good detection effect in complex terrain. But its concealment is a bit poor. Indeed, Garen nodded in agreement. It emits blue fluorescence at night, which is indeed not concealable enough. This is just your first totem. You can choose to change it in the future. There is no rush. Aining waved his hand. There is another key thing, about the totem. He raised his hand and pointed it slightly in front of Garen. The tip of the sword slammed against Garen's calf. Huh? Garen showed a strange expression. This is. He felt that the tip of the stick did not touch the skin of his calf, but seemed to be blocked by something. He looked carefully at the tip of the sword. There was a layer of transparent light blue film between there and the pants. This is the light of the totem. Aining took back his cane. It is a protective force field that feeds back to the owner after the totem is formed. It covers and surrounds the owner's whole body without any blind spots. Is this the light of the totem? Garen stretched out his hand and saw the extremely thin layer of light blue light film extending as he stretched out his hand, like a deformable water film, which was very strange. How protective is it? It's usually more than twice the size of the totem itself. Aining smiled. Do you know how this came about? Garen shook his head and waited intently for the teacher's answer. A silver lantern master has many totems, and each totem will give the owner a protective force field. The superposition of such force fields is definitely much stronger than the force field of a single totem. Moreover, The protective nature of the totem's light itself is it stronger than the totem itself. Anning paused. This is why battles between Silver Lantern Masters are all conducted with totems and generally do not attack the owner first. Garen understood. Indeed, in this case, the Silver Lantern Master is actually much more protective than the totem. The most important thing is to deal with the totem first. That's it. Aining raised his hand and the white links on the ground suddenly turned into a white light and flew back behind him. The fluorescent butterfly also flew up again, falling into the big bottle in Garen's hand, and he stuffed it in and closed it. After watching him put it away, Aining looked up at the night. It's still early, let's walk back and talk while walking. Okay, teacher. Garen nodded. The two of them walked slowly towards the town along the return route. Aining leaned on his cane and watched Garen carefully walk ahead to explore the path to prevent him from stepping into puddles and deep pits. A relieved smile suddenly appeared. Golan, the ability of the totem itself will not harm the owner. You have to remember. In addition, almost the vast majority of Silver Lantern Masters have auxiliary totems that are no different from real creatures. There is no difference in strength. Any enhancement. As you see the morphological species. A lynx is a lynx, and a fluorescent butterfly is a fluorescent butterfly. They are just like the original creatures. The auxiliary totems rarely have enhanced ones, right? Garen understood. That's right. But the core totem is different. Aining sighed. For example, my core totem is the white bear. In addition to the super strength of the white bear itself, it also has thicker fur than the average white bear, which can withstand super strength. Sharp object injury. Teacher, your white bear shouldn't be an ordinary bear, right? Garen asked in a low voice. Of course. Aining nodded. My lineage specializes in 3 animals, the giant white bear, the black cheetah, and the fanged tiger. The giant white bear is indeed not an ordinary bear, but a large white bear originating from the bitter cold regions of the north. It's the dominant animal there. Garen nodded in understanding. Aining continued, this kind of super strong fur has been continuously strengthened by us from generation to generation. It is much stronger in defense than ordinary giant white bears. When ordinary bears deal with it, there will be no accidents and they will be completely defeated. So in the future, if you want to choose a core totem, it is best to choose a core totem that you have accumulated, so that you can go further based on the previous ones. Rather than starting from scratch again. He sighed. You have to understand that in the world of Silver Lantern Masters, without strength, even self-protection is a problem. Garen nodded silently. He suddenly remembered the large number of Silver Lantern Masters who died in subsequent wars. In 2 consecutive catastrophes, the first war broke out between the Royal Alliance and the Black Sky Society, and hundreds of Silver Lantern Masters died. The second war broke out between the Black Sky Society and the Earth Flower Society, and thousands of Silver Lantern Masters died. In the end, the remaining Silver Lantern Masters were less than 1/3 of 1,000 in the world. A large amount of knowledge has been lost because there is no record. In the era of the Silver Lantern Master, except for some of the most peak knowledge, it will eventually become a situation where only a few lines of knowledge are passed down. And Aining was also affected and died in the First War. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. When you go back, start learning the 3 basic techniques from me. Aining smiled. These 3 basic techniques are actually very simple. The difficulty is here. He point to your own head. Is it the accumulation of knowledge? Yes. A Silver Lantern Master with insufficient knowledge cannot analyze even the weakest bugs. A Silver Lantern Master with sufficient knowledge cannot analyze almost any creature. Aining replied with a smile. I will hand over the 3 basic techniques to you. Then you can enter my underground library and study on your own. During this period, if you are willing, I will teach you the knowledge I have about giant white bears. Aining looked at Garen. Originally, he just planned to lead the little guy to get started. But when he saw his master-level precision drawing, the balance in his heart suddenly fell on this guy. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 257. Since his teacher left the school, the huge Darshura school also fell apart and split into three main factions. Giant White Bear, Black Cheetah, Fanged Tiger. Aining actually has brothers who live far away. Those two senior brothers are different from him now. They have blossomed and scattered leaves long ago. They have a large group of disciples and grandchildren, and their influence in the local area is not small. The other party also invited him over many times, but he declined them all. When Aining thought of this, he couldn't help but sigh and looked at Garen to the side. Your operation is very good, which is a little convenience brought by master-level precision cartography. If you are willing, join my school, the core totem White Bear, and I can help you create it. Of course, once the core totem is selected, it will be very troublesome for you to change in the future. Moreover, in this case, you must bear the responsibility of our school. Garen had also heard him mention the situation of the Aining school. When the teacher said this, he remained silent and did not answer immediately. I will start teaching you the three basic techniques when I get back. It will probably take a few months. During this time, you should think about it carefully. Aining also knew that this problem was very troublesome, so he did not force it. Back at Aining's small building, Galen followed Aining to briefly understand some information and principles of the first technique analysis. After hurriedly washing up, he returned to his bedroom on the first floor to rest. The kerosene lamp beside the bed slowly turned on, emitting a bright yellow halo. Garen was sitting on the edge of the bed, flipping through the large book in his hand somewhat casually. The cover of the book read, Biological Encyclopedia Illustrated Book. Once the core totem is set, if you want to change it, you have to wait for more than 5 years. At the same time, special lifting rituals and materials are required. It is very troublesome, but with a good core totem, you can have everything you need anytime and anywhere in your life. The totemic light of automatic response. He understands the benefit of this. The automatic defense totem light is enough to deal with any danger that the Silver Lantern Master encounters. Without releasing the totem, you can automatically be protected by the light of the totem anytime and anywhere. This also makes the Silver Lantern Masters stand aloof and look down upon even the strongest mortals. Because no matter how strong a mortal is, he cannot break through the seemingly weak layer of totem light. Because attacks without the light of silver cannot break the light of the core totem. This is a qualitative gap that is difficult to break through with quantity. Only a Silver Lantern Master with a core totem can truly embody the invulnerability of a Silver Lantern Master and truly stand at the pinnacle of mortals. Garen murmured, feeling a little hesitant in his heart. Logically speaking, choosing White Bear was a good shortcut, but he also knew very well that in front of those extremely powerful Silver Lantern Masters in the later stage, White Bear was pitifully weak. Forget it, I will learn the three major techniques now, and then accumulate relevant knowledge. I am different from other Silver Lantern Masters. Now that I have recovered my strength, I have reached the peak of mortals. I am equivalent to a Grand Master in this world. There is no need to be in such a hurry. Make sure the core totem is confirmed to protect yourself. Garen made a decision, got on the bed, covered himself with a quilt and rested peacefully. In the following time, Garen followed Aining to learn the principles and structure of basic spells every day, as well as how to mobilize his own qualifications. The three major techniques are indeed, as Aining said, not difficult, not to mention Garen's physical quality. Even ordinary Silver Lantern Masters can learn it fairly well. During this period of time, Garen's physical fitness has also recovered to above 2.0 on average, and even his weakest intelligence has improved to 2.0. This is obviously caused by a life that constantly stimulates the brain. The three major techniques that were originally thought to take several months to learn were completely mastered by Garen in just half a month due to Garen's concentration and proficiency. This surprised Aining. He also discovered that as time went by, it seemed that Galen's learning ability was improving and getting faster. Soon, he proposed that Garen go to the underground library to accumulate knowledge and materials on his own. There are some non-core information books in his collection, only some popular general totem construction methods. In his opinion, what Galen lacks now is the accumulation of knowledge and a unit factory that suits him and belongs entirely to him. He can make totems for Galen, but a unit factory is different. If Garen is not willing to inherit his lineage, Garen will have to build his own unit factory in the future. This is an almost astronomical sum of money. Now that you have mastered the three major techniques, all that's left is to accumulate your own theoretical knowledge. Only with enough theory can you have enough data to base your analytical techniques on. Now, go to the underground library. Enon led Garen to the shadow behind the stairs. On the wall behind the stairs, there is a heavy black iron door with a large lock on it. Enon handed the key to Garen and turned to leave. Go out and talk to the little girl. Ning Ning seems to be explaining something. Garen took the big, palm-long key, inserted it gently into the keyhole, and twisted it. With a click, the big lock popped open. Garen pushed open the iron door, and it was dark inside. He went inside and lit an oil lamp on the wall with a match. Laugh. Fantastic. In an instant, a series of oil lamps suddenly lit up on the entire basement wall, forming a bright yellow light line. The first oil lamp seemed to be a fuse, igniting all the oil lamps in the entire basement at once. The whole basement suddenly lit up. Garen closed the door with his backhand and looked around the entire basement quietly. It was almost the size of a small football field. Inside were rows of black stone bookshelves, with a small number of books sparsely placed on them. There are desks and chairs next to the bookshelf, and a few pieces of white paper for writing are scattered on the table. Garen walked down the sloping slope and felt a faint cool breeze flowing in the library. He walked to the first bookshelf on the far left and looked at the corners of the bookshelf. There is a black label stuck there, with white letters on a black background saying, Technique Research Category. He glanced at the bookshelf. There were only two thin booklets on the bookshelf. They had no covers and were all white. Shaking his head, Garen walked to the second bookshelf. The label reads, Encyclopedia of Biological Structures. There are a lot of books in this bookshelf, of different sizes and thicknesses, almost filling most of the bookshelf. There is one of the largest books, with pages half a meter wide and covered with thick leather. Like a black shield, it leans at the foot of the bookshelf. Garen glanced at the cover of the book, Darsala Biological Encyclopedia. He continued to the third bookshelf. The label reads, Fundamental School Theory. There is only one book on this bookshelf, it is thick and covered in red leather. Printed on it is, History of Totem Development. Next, the fourth bookshelf and the fifth bookshelf are marked with the same name, Theory and Practice. The books above are all about the travels, experiences, biographies, etc. of the Silver Lantern Masters. Garen took out one and looked through it. Each of these books was actually written with a special symbol and text. All are encrypted. Moreover, the books are different. There are a total of 32 books, and there are actually 28 encrypted languages. If you don't understand these decryption methods, you can't understand them at all. There are only a few biographies of modern figures that are not encrypted, and they seem to be written by other Silver Lantern Masters. In desperation, Garen put all the books he couldn't understand back on the bookshelf. Most of the other bookshelves are similar, including the shield-like black book, the Darsala Biological Encyclopedia. It was also encrypted with a password. I could barely read the graphics inside, but couldn't understand anything else. There was only one bookshelf he could see. That is the second bookshelf, Encyclopedia of Biological Structure. During this time, Enning taught him a unique code of his own, and it happened that most of the books on this bookshelf could be decrypted using this code. Galen took down a book from this bookshelf, Entomology by Nkorezu. There was a long list of names behind it. He opened the book and his brain quickly deciphered the contents using the decryption method. This kind of decompilation is very slow, equivalent to twice the time it normally takes to read a book. And it's very difficult. Galen slowly decompiled it word for word and then read it through. Time passed by minute, hours passed by, and the book was only halfway through. Garen closed his eyes, feeling a little sore and taking a short rest. Then keep reading. His physical attributes have reached extremely high levels of terror. In the face of an intelligence of over 2.0, almost everything he has read can be instantly understood and memorized in his mind. During this period, Aining also came in to take a look at him. He found that Galen was engrossed in reading and studying, and he happily withdrew again. On the first day, Galen didn't even finish reading the entire book on entomology. The book started out simple, but became more complex as it went on, and the biological systems it introduced became more sophisticated and ingenious. There are more and more things to remember. The next day, Galen continued to read and study in the basement. Then on the third day, I finally finished the entire entomology book. Sitting on the chair, Garen watched as the light red skill bar below his field of vision moved slightly, and a light red symbol appeared. Immediately recognize what the symbols represent. Requirements for complete mastery of entomology, Intelligence 1.4. Meted. The moment the symbol flashed, Garen felt that the somewhat fuzzy places he had read before suddenly became extremely clear, and some hidden places that were not fully understood were instantly understood. The first book he let out a long breath. He looked at the remaining books on the shelf. Those include terrestrial zoology, ornithology, aquatic zoology, microbiology and many other categories. There are also some targeted detailed books on the side. For example, butterfly insect structure. Garen began to slowly read one book after another, staying in the basement day after day. Gradually, there were fewer and fewer books on biological structure on the bookshelf, and all the books he had read were piled on the desk. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 258. Aining originally wanted him to understand the overall knowledge system, classification, and general structural differences of biology. He would never have thought that Garen could have a photographic memory and understand instantly. With the cooperation of high intelligence and superpowers, he has memorized all the books he has read. However, in the skill column, complete skills have never been formed. After staying in the basement for more than a month, Garen finally walked out of the basement with a tired face. After studying boring academic books for more than a month, even with his strong mental endurance, he felt tired and sleepy. How about it? Aining waited at the door and looked at him quietly. The harvest is great, Garen nodded seriously. It's just that many books are encrypted and cannot be read. That's natural. There's nothing I can do about it. My teacher robbed many of the books. There's no way to decrypt them, so I just kept them for collection. Aining also showed a trace of helplessness on his face. Now you have basically mastered the three major techniques. Everything I can show you in my collection is open to you. Now you can also start training. I ask you one last time, do you want to join my lineage? School. If you join, I will make a white bear core totem for you. If not, you can only choose another core totem. After you are sure, come to me and I will make a core totem for you. It's just that you understand the result. Garen nodded. Now it's finally time to make a decision. I still choose not to join for the time being, he said his decision calmly. Aining opened his lips, wanting to say something more, but still no sound came out. Both fell silent. Garen bowed solemnly and bowed to Aining. Whether I join or not, you are my teacher. Aining waved his hands regretfully. The giant white bear is not as weak as you think. In fact, any core totem has different evolutionary states. I understand. Only schools with inheritance can truly form a powerful evolutionary form, making the core totem stronger and stronger, with room for evolution. Garen answered clearly, it's just. He did not continue. Aining nodded understandingly. I know, you still want to inherit your father's core totem. Forget it, when do you plan to go back? Take a rest. Tomorrow, I'll leave tomorrow. Garen answered affirmatively. Enon said no more, took out a folded thick paper from the pocket of his robe and handed it to Garen. This is the Silver Lantern Night Market. Some famous night markets are marked above. You have master-level precision mapping. You can go there to pick up some jobs and earn some resources. In the future, you'd better build your own unit factory, otherwise borrow from other human ones will reveal the secrets of your unit. Of course you can also use your father's, but you will know about it later. Thank you, teacher. Garen thanked him seriously. During this period, regardless of the purpose or reason, Aining taught him extremely seriously and responsibly. It truly brings him into the world of the Silver Lantern Master. This is a big love. Garen knew very well that most of the materials he read in the library were compiled by Aining himself and were encrypted with his special password. These materials all have his own unique accumulation and understanding. From the initial transaction, to the later attention, to now the generous teaching. Aining's change of attitude was seen in Garen's eyes. Work hard. Aining patted Garen on the shoulder. I will. Garen nodded seriously. While you still have some time, let me tell you the rules of communication between Silver Lantern Masters. Don't violate some people's taboos and cause trouble, Aining said solemnly. Ding! Ding! The silver wind chimes hanging on the corners of the carriage kept making crisp sounds. On the vast yellow-green plain, a silver ribbon-like river meanders. The afternoon sun had little warmth, and gusts of cold wind blew. The light green carriage moved slowly along the river, like a small caterpillar on the yellow-green carpet. The coachman was dressed in grey leather clothes and held a wine bag in his hand, taking a sip from time to time. He carefully identified the route on the ground. You can still vaguely see the carriage and horse hoof prints in front of you on the grass. How long until we reach Nada town? A man's voice came from the carriage. It'll take about half a day, the coachman replied appraised. We will definitely arrive before dark, don't worry. Otherwise, I will be sorry for the wool cloth you gave me. He chuckled twice, waved his riding crop and cracked it. There was a sound. Inside the carriage, a handsome-looking young man with blonde hair was sitting calmly. He was wearing a grey robe and had a thick black book on his knees. He had just opened the first page. This man was Galen, who came out of the small town and left his teacher Aining. Before he left, Aining gave him two more things. 1. The book on his lap. The second one is a short silver-white cane, which is a storage container, used to store Galleon's butterfly totem. Garen listened to the thumping of horse hooves and the sound of wind chimes, and turned the pages of the black book on his knees with calm eyes. On the black book page, which is as wide as the forearm, there is a line of familiar handwriting on the first page. That was Teacher Aining's code symbol, and the ink looked fresh. Teacher, I owe you another favor, he murmured in a low voice, shook his head slightly, and began to decompile the line of handwriting. I copied part of the content of the school illustration. Some non-core things may be helpful to you. When you encounter a problem, read this book. Garen sighed and turned to the second page. Any ordinary creature can evolve into a powerful legendary creature. It depends on how to cultivate evolution. This is the only sentence on pages 2 and 3. Garen continued to turn over. On the fourth page, a ferocious black wolf appeared on top. Colorful pictures on the right, text explanations on the left. Black wolf, basic level, one of the most common forest wolves in East Continent, has a huge number, ferocious temperament, cunning, and cruelty. Special ability, smell. Its powerful sense of smell is much stronger than that of ordinary dogs, and it is very effective for tracking. Activity area, Forests, hills. Totem making difficulty, easy. Garen frowned and continued to turn to the next 2 pages. On pages 5 and 6, on the right is a black wolf with red flames on its feet, and on the left is still a text explanation. Garen observed carefully that the shape of this black wolf was exactly the same as the previous black wolf, except that it was larger and had red flames burning under its 4 legs. Fire wolf, evolutionary level, second form. The ferocious wild wolf evolved from the black wolf totem. It has sharper claws that can add high temperature damage while attacking and biting. Special abilities, sense of smell, damage enhancement, high temperature enhancement, self-destruction. The last special ability is the main reason why Silver Lantern Masters choose black wolves as pets. When the fire wolf dies, it will erupt in a terrifying explosion, completely melting everything within a certain range. Totem evolution difficulty, 10 kilograms of A-grade rubies, 10 kilograms of A-grade pyrotechnics. The chance of success is determined by basic quality and pre-evolution. Totem strength, normal is 11.5%. It will self-destruct after failure, which is dangerous. Hiss. Garen gasped. The chance of success with 10 kilograms of A-grade rubies and pyrotechnics is actually so high. He blew himself up knowing that the power of the Silver Lantern Master was not easily obtained, but could be in danger at any time. When reading the information, I was told many times by the above that you must be fully prepared before evolving, otherwise your life will be in danger at every turn. This kind of consumption of financial resources. The evolved form is probably not something that a big noble can afford. Garen compared the situation in his mind, and finally had a clear positioning on the profession of Silver Lantern Master. This is simply a waste of money. But judging from this, the output of gemstones in this world should be quite large. Garen continued to turn to the next 2 pages. Lava Giant Wolf, evolutionary level, third form. A terrifying giant wolf evolved from the fire wolf totem. It is stronger and faster. Its body is filled with liquid material similar to magma. You can feel the high temperature of hundreds of degrees just by getting close to it. It is the most powerful evolutionary form that Black Wolf can achieve, and is one of the 3 ultimate forms of our Darshura school. Special ability, inherit all the abilities of Fire Wolf and be strengthened. Explosive Fireball, can emit a powerful explosive fireball, destroying enemies in the distance. It is very powerful. Totem evolution difficulty, 1 red dragon fruit, magma technique. The chance of success is determined by basic quality and pre-evolution. Totem strength, normal is 2.6%. It will self-destruct after failure, which is extremely dangerous. Garen let out a long sigh and looked at the terrifying magma wolf on the page. This is no longer an ordinary creature, but a truly powerful legendary creature. No wonder the totem is so powerful, and no wonder the Silver Lantern Master is so powerful. Continuing to scroll back, there are 2 other creatures, the white bear and the cheetah, and their evolved forms. There are only 3 kinds of creatures in the whole book, and the last totem left by the Darshura school is the fanged tiger. Not in this book. According to the research of the Darsula school, the white bear also has 3 evolutionary forms. White bear, giant white bear, ice bear. Cheetahs are cheetahs, black-winged leopards, and night shadow leopards. The ultimate forms are like mythical creatures, extremely powerful. But the conditions for evolution and the probability of success are horribly low. This made Garen clearly realize the gap between Silver Lantern Masters. Since such information is available, it means that the ultimate form is not a theoretical conjecture, but has actually appeared. Just like a black wolf, an ordinary black wolf is no different from an ordinary black wolf. At most, it has the light of silver. It is slightly stronger than the biological black wolf. But if it is the evolved second form of the fire wolf, it has almost completely become a killing machine. The final ultimate form of the giant lava wolf is simply a divine creature. This kind of top-notch and ordinary, the gap is simply too huge. Garen originally didn't know what form the Silver Lantern Master could achieve. After all, in the scenes he saw during the shuttle, All high-intensity fights had extremely powerful interference, and he could only see a blur. But now, through the illustrations, he saw how high the ultimate totem-killing machine of the Darshura school had reached for hundreds of years. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 259. He gently closed the illustrated book and looked out the window at the receding grassland. In the distance, a group of cows and white sheep were sparsely walking among the grass. The strong wind blew the grass down continuously, causing ripples like waves. What a terrifying silver lantern master! He let out a sigh of relief. What if I faced a giant lava wolf? He stopped speaking and simply imagined it. No matter how he simulated it, he was completely defeated. He couldn't even get close and was easily killed. It seems that we have to quickly choose the core totem and become a true silver lantern master earlier so that we can officially intervene in this world. There is only 1.5 years left. Garen put the illustrated book away in his bag, held the silver cane as long as his forearm, closed his eyes, and began to look at the attribute bar and skill bar below his field of vision. Below the skill bar, a translucent red symbol is faintly appearing, like a growing embryo, jumping and flashing with a heart-like red halo. Galen discovered this yesterday. After careful observation, he discovered that inside this embryo, there seemed to be a delicate 3D image of a fluorescent butterfly. This made him very happy. He had been looking forward to the ability to help him on the road of Silver Lantern Masters. Otherwise, if he wanted to catch up with those elite Silver Lantern Masters in more than a year, he would have to do a fantasy. But now we can finally see some hope. Superpowers seem to be slowly including the totem fluorescent butterfly. Today's pattern will be clearer again. Garen withdrew his gaze. I estimate that the specific effect will be demonstrated when we return to the manor. However, we cannot place our hopes only on this, we have to prepare in many aspects. What he lacks now is the core totem. During the shuttle scene, all battles are very blurry, obviously too complex and too volatile. All you can see is a mess of colors. You can probably only judge the strength from the degree of shaking. It's just that the specific totem form is not clear. Garen refused to choose the totem of the Daesula school, mainly because he wanted to find a totem that was powerful enough to serve as his confidence in the future. But such a totem must require detailed knowledge inheritance, how to cultivate it, how to care for it, what conditions are needed, and even the environment and time requirements. It's just that he already has a certain plan. The carriage arrived at each small town it passed, and Garen kept changing carriages, or joining the caravan, and soon approached the border of Green Forest Province. Green Forest Province is a park province, covered by large forests, and has an endless stream of tourists. Garen arrived at Farunder, a small city between Hana Province and Green Forest. From here, he took a sightseeing bus and headed to Terry Jones's territory in the middle of Green Forest. Between the emerald green forest, two rectangular ox carts, like white buses, slowly moved forward in the sea of trees. The tour guide was the daughter of an Orion. He was holding a trumpet-shaped paper tube and was loudly introducing the customs of Green Forest to the passengers in the car. The car was full of tourists, mostly couples, and families of 3. There are workers, businessmen, small nobles, military officers, etc. There were almost 20 people in one car, men, women, old, and young. The cart is pulled by a sturdy black bull, with 4 heads and more than 1 meter tall, which is equivalent to a stronger version of an ordinary black bull. From time to time a low roar was emitted. The wheels rattled over small rocks and pits from time to time, causing some shaking and unevenness. Garen was sitting on the left side of the last row of the car, next to the window. He was still wearing a gray robe, with a black leather box at his feet, and he was neatly dressed. He looks like a young teacher in a university, with a very gentle temperament. Two people sat opposite him, a middle-aged male priest wearing black clothes with white trim, and a taciturn young girl. The two seemed to be together. They didn't speak when they got in the car. It seemed that the atmosphere was a bit awkward. It's been more than half an hour since the two got in the car, and they haven't said a word. On the contrary, the four people sitting opposite each other on the left were talking loudly. The four people were two young newlyweds. The men were talking passionately to each other. You talked about the glorious history, and I talked about the anecdotes. The two wives were bragging about the new things they bought at home and where they were imported. Also what kind of food was eaten and what chef cooked it. Two pairs of vanity-loving petty bourgeois families got together, and as a result, the people around them were also influenced by them, and began to use various ways to point out that they were not easy to mess with, and that they could be related to so and so. So the poor tour guide could only talk dryly about the local customs and customs of listen, although it seemed that no one was listening. Of course, there are a few people who don't like to participate, such as Galen and the priest and girl sitting opposite. There was also a white-haired old couple and a young male officer sitting in the front seat next to them. Garin reviewed his understanding of the basic techniques for a while. Feeling that his brain was a little tired, he paused and rested for a while. He looked out the window and saw a metal street sign that had just passed by. There seemed to be something written on it. He didn't have time to see clearly. "Excuse me, where are you now?" Garin asked politely to the black priest. "Eisenhower, it was written on the street sign just now," the priest replied with a gentle smile. The girl next to me sneered. "We turned left, and now we are going to White Gascar. Don't talk nonsense if you don't see clearly." "Maybe I saw it wrong, I'm sorry," the priest smiled at Garin in an educated manner. "If it's Beti Gaska, it's almost there in 1 hour." He took out a pocket watch and checked the time. "It's so fast." After passing Beta Gaska, Terry Jones should be the one taking the lead, right? Galen asked again. "Yes. The Terry Jones family is a local lord and aristocrat. They have maintained the original style of the territory very well. It is a good place for tourism." The priest nodded. "We can see black swans there," the girl rushed to say. "Oh my God, there are as many black swans as ducks there. It is a very famous scene. But bandits are rampant there. We won't be robbed, right?" a man from the two couples on the left interjected worriedly. "No, it is said that some time ago, the bandits there were almost wiped out," the priest replied warmly. "I once went there to pay tribute to a newly built chapel and visited the planning officer of the territory. I probably know a little bit about the situation." "The planning officer there should still be Zinke, right?" "Zinke is an imperial official from Hana," the man asked. "You know him too?" The priest was slightly surprised. "I've met him several times. He's a very well-educated big man. We met him at a concert," the man replied slightly proudly. "Zinke planning officer is said to have been transferred from Hana province where there was unrest." The priest frowned and said. "Unrest? Are you talking about those damn Nell thugs? I heard that the Southwest is very serious right now. The governors of several cities have fled." The man suddenly lowered his voice. "Don't talk nonsense about important matters in the empire," the wife beside the man gently pulled him. Immediately neither the man nor the priest said any more. "It's just that his expression is a little serious." They all noticed that the male officer sitting in the front row looked here with a somewhat cold look. Garin's heart moved. "You just said that there was unrest in the Southwest." He looked at the priest and the man who had just spoken. "Don't talk about it. It's better not to talk about such a national important matter on such an occasion," the priest reminded in a low voice. "Can you tell me which cities are experiencing unrest?" Garin also lowered his voice and looked very interested. The man on the side couldn't help but answered. "I heard they are Yungang City and White Rose City." White Rose, Garin was slightly shocked, and a black and white square flag suddenly appeared in his memory. The black on the left is pure jet black, and the white on the right is the white rose flower that symbolizes purity and nobility. It finally started. He felt a little heavy. The wheels of history finally began to roll. According to the historical axis compiled by Garin, everything started with the war between the Black Sky Society and the Royal Alliance. And this time the White Rose Rebellion was the beginning of the Black Sky Society's actions. It was also the beginning of the end of the Royal Alliance's thousands of years of rule. Under the flames of war in the Black Sky Society, the huge, bloated and corrupt body of the Royal Alliance completely collapsed in just 1 year. The Royal Alliance will not collapse so easily. Garin began to think carefully in his mind. According to the established history, the overall strength of the Royal Alliance is much stronger than the Black Sky Society in the early and mid-term, but it has been drawn into a large number of internal wars. Strength, internal and external troubles, coupled with the fact that the alliances are fighting on their own, and they also want to annex each other and do not rescue. This led to the outbreak of the Second Turmoil and the Third War. Those stupid kings and royal families thought that this turmoil was the same as before and would be extinguished soon, and then they divided up the national interests cleared from the turmoil. Unfortunately, this time is different. Garin sat alone. My heart was filled with ups and downs. The Battle of White Rose was an action taken by the Black Sky Society to challenge and test the authority of the Royal Alliance. They still believe that the Royal Alliance is powerful and do not dare to provoke large-scale conflicts. Unexpectedly, the results far exceeded their expectations. A simple small-scale turmoil ended up destroying the small empire where it was located, and it also tended to spread to surrounding countries. Garin's mind quickly wandered. This turmoil is unstoppable. Soon, 2 months later, the war will officially break out. The Black Sky Society declares war on the royal family. This war will spread to every corner of the world, and there will be no place to hide. Silver the Lantern Masters were also completely exposed to the public. They joined the army and fought life and death battles. I must determine my core totem within these 2 months, otherwise the war breaks out and my father is transferred to join the war. My safety is the main problem. This is the First World War of this world. The Black Sky Society provoked wars in 23 countries and launched the most powerful charge against the Royal Alliance of traditional powers. They did not use formal means, but the way of Silver Lantern Masters, igniting the flames of war all over the world. Garin remembered that during World War I, the Black Sky Society used totems as its foundation to create countless terrifying inhuman armies, destroying everything like a natural disaster. The Royal Alliance was defeated one after another, and large areas of territory were occupied. Within a year, the royal families everywhere were finally defeated and the world was in chaos. But in this near-apocalyptic situation, 3 extremely powerful and young heroes emerge. Grand Duke Gothic, Prince Alexander, and Queen Joan Annis. The city where the 3 of them are located has become the front line in the fight against the Black Sky Society, and at the same time it has also restored the 3 major institutions that were about to collapse. Become the last resistance flag of the Royal Alliance. What Garin wants to do now is to find his own core totem that is powerful enough from this turmoil. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 260. Money, knowledge, and totem are powerful enough. 3 conditions. All must be satisfied, otherwise we may face great danger in the coming crisis. Garin was sitting on the sightseeing bus, his mind racing with thoughts, but he still had no plan. It stands to reason that the 3 heroes are extremely powerful, and as long as they can obtain the inherited knowledge of any one of them, they can reach a very high level. But Garin still had some hesitation in his heart. Even if the 3 heroes are so powerful, it is still imitation and can never surpass their height. Am I not as terrifying as their talents if I have superpowers? He still had a glimmer of hope in his own superpowers. After looking at the increasingly clear image of the butterfly at the bottom of his field of vision, Garin calmed down and decided to wait until the superpower was fully formed before taking a look. He had seen the terrifying effect of this power when he was in secret martial arts. Definitely not ordinary strong. Putting away his thoughts, Garen began to take out a small notebook and read through some of the problems and points of thinking written down in it. This is his preparation for the future core totem, so he tries his best to simulate the type of totem he is suitable for and what conditions are needed to achieve such a type. Occasionally, a couple chatting with each other and two couples on the side. The bullock cart moved forward slowly and fairly smoothly. The tour guide seemed tired of talking and was sitting down with a water bottle to soothe her throat. "Look. It's a black deer," a child pointed to the outside of the car and shouted loudly, his face full of excitement. "There is actually a black deer. So beautiful. It must be a little deer." The passengers suddenly became lively. Garen turned his head and looked to the right. On the grass next to the car, stood a small black deer half as tall as a man. It had no antlers and was slender and tender. He was gnawing on the grass with his head down. He looked up curiously at the sightseeing car from time to time. "The ears move, very cute. Call." A breeze blew by, causing the woods to rustle. The little black deer immediately jumped into the woods and quickly disappeared deep into the dense forest. "So cute," the girl opposite praised her. "It would be great if we could raise it ourselves," she whispered, with a look of longing on her face. She took out a bottle of water from her small bag, opened it, drank some, and then stopped talking. Garen's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he felt something. He concentrated for a moment, then suddenly turned his head and looked over the sea of trees in the distance. "Something's wrong." In the sea of trees, two women in emerald green dresses squatted on the branches of a big tree, looking calmly at the two tourist buses that were slowly driving past on the driveway in the forest. The woman on the left is about 20 years old, with a slender figure, beautiful facial features, and translucent skin. She wears two black shoulder armors on her shoulders, and two white feather quivers hang from her waist. She looks like a beautiful and delicate kingfisher, quietly perched on a huge tree branch. "Vera, are you sure you are one of the people in these two cars?" She looked at the ordinary woman on the other side. The other woman was smaller, with ordinary facial features, and a scarlet scar on the bridge of her nose, which looked a bit ferocious. "I have been following them for half an hour, so it should be right." "It is the man in the last row of the first car, who is our target," Vera replied in a low voice. "This time the eldest sister ordered us to complete the task. There is no room for error when it comes to the evaluation of our green shade." "I know," the first woman nodded. "I was on vacation, but I was called back early." "Okay, let's get back to work." The two of them squatted on a tree branch, and simultaneously pulled out an arrow from the quiver. They turned their left forearms over, and with a few snaps, two emerald green short bows popped out of the arm guards. Squeak squeak. Two sounds of arrows being cocked on the bowstring. Two white feathered arrows were aimed at the rear of the first sightseeing car from two angles at the same time. On the slender yellow wood of the arrow, a word was clearly engraved: Kingfisher. "Be careful, Shia should be protected by experts at least general level," Vera whispered. "It's up to you then, Trish." "It's okay to leave it to me," the first woman nodded easily. "Try to solve it with one arrow. Mine has good things attached to it, so it's worth a lot of money." Only then did Vera on the side notice the arrow on Tracy's rack. There was a small silver metal ball on the top of the arrow, which seemed to be engraved with some pattern, and it looked very delicate. "You actually used it?" Tracy said with a hint of physical pain on her face. "Even if he is a master, he is still dead." Garen was sitting in his seat, and for some reason, his vest felt cold. He glanced around and found nothing unusual. With his eyebrows moving slightly, he reached his right hand to the box at his feet and slowly grasped the short staff leaning against the box. Just as he held the short staff, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a white shadow from the corner of his eye, flying towards this side. It seemed to be a white bird. What a beautiful white bird, the girl opposite also noticed Bai Ying. Suddenly she was slightly startled and her voice stopped. Not good. Garen's pupils shrank and he ducked down. Laugh. A white arrow passed through his head in an instant and was nailed to the wooden board of the carriage. The wood where the arrow tip was nailed actually made a hissing sound of corrosion. In just over 2 seconds, a large green part of the white wood spread out, and sour green smoke emitted. The entire carriage paused for a moment, then suddenly erupted. Ah! There was a scream of terror throughout the carriage. The girl sitting opposite Garen suddenly jumped down and huddled up, leaning against the car. The priest also held his head, fearing that his head would be exposed. Garen dodged the arrow, straightened up again, and looked in the direction of the arrow. In the sea of trees in the distance, 2 emerald green figures flashed away. Laugh. Suddenly, an extremely strong sense of threat came from diagonally behind. Garen only felt the hair on his back stand on end, and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Without any time to think, he rushed out. There was a click, and the car swayed slightly. He smashed the wooden board on the side. He jumped out of the window and rolled to the ground several times before stopping. Bang! There was a violent explosion in the car behind him. Garen did not look back. He turned his back to the bullock cart and saw a trace of red fire reflected from the grass around him, and a wave of hot fire surged from behind. Tisk tisk tisk. 3 more consecutive sounds of breaking the air came. Garen's feet suddenly exerted force, and 2 small holes appeared on the grass. He instantly dodged 3 white feathered arrows. Bang! Where he was originally, the last arrow suddenly exploded and turned into a ball of red fire. The grass and soil on the ground were instantly burned to black, accompanied by a strange red smoke. A wisp of smoke drifted silently to Garen's side, just touching his back. Hiss! Garen felt a pain in his back. He touched his back in shock and found that his hands were covered with burnt black cloth. His back was burning, obviously injured. He immediately rolled away from his original position again and threw himself into the dense forest. What kind of arrow is this? Such a terrifying power, he was shocked and angry. Even the powerful defense of my god statue skill can't withstand it. He moved in the woods at high speed, while constantly observing the surroundings vigilantly, catching the traces and scents of the 2 people. The god statue technique was operating at full strength, and the huge energy and blood aura suddenly spread, forming a white gold energy that ordinary people could not see, spreading in all directions. Soon, all the forests within a radius of more than 200 meters were covered with aura. Garen's eyes narrowed slightly, and his body expanded slightly unknowingly, staring in all directions like a cheetah. Suddenly, one side of his body passed by a white feathered arrow. I want to run. The sharp look in his eyes flashed away, and the earth pit suddenly exploded under his feet, and he rushed towards the direction of the arrow. In the distant woods, 2 green shadows jumped through the forest at high speed. It kept skimming over the tree trunks and branches like an ape. Tracy, he's catching up, Vero looked back and said loudly with a frown. This kind of speed is interesting, Tracy sneered. She was running at high speed, but her breath was as steady as if she were standing on flat ground. I didn't expect that so many arrows couldn't kill him. It seems that this person may be pretending to be the master who protects Ahashia. He wants to lure out the enemy and deal with it at once. They thought well, but it was a pity that they met me. I just used 2 red mist arrows, but they couldn't hurt him. He is probably a master level expert, and he is the strongest level. Since he is a master level expert, let's treat him with the treatment he deserves. Tracy smiled coldly, and with an afterimage in her right hand, she pulled out 4 feather arrows from the quiver, put them all on the short bow, and pulled them. Squeak! The bowstring tightened instantly, almost full moon. Tisk tisk tisk. Amidst the 4 subtle sounds of breaking through the air, All 4 arrows were nailed into the trunks of 4 big trees, forming a huge arc shape. Tisk tisk tisk. There was another soft sound, and the 4 red mist arrows were nailed into the trunks of 4 other big trees again, forming another arc. 2 arcs form a circle, which is extremely complete. Red mist ambush. Since you want to get close, I will let you get close. Tracy stood there and simply refused to leave. Vera, please go back and wait for the results on the outside. Okay. Vera jumped into the woods. Bang. Vera retreated suddenly, as if being knocked back by a strong force. Her legs made 2 marks on the ground, and finally hit a big tree trunk with a bang. Galen walked step by step to the forest, stood still at a distance, stared at Tracy, and glanced at the style of her clothes. Who are you? His voice was low. He glanced at Vera beside the tree trunk and gave him a red jade palm. The other party simply vomited some blood and stood still without any serious problems. It seemed that he was still there. You can continue to fight. As a mortal, he was able to avoid my red mist arrows twice, which is amazing. Tracy's face returned to calmness. She glanced at Garen, and suddenly sneered. She suddenly took out a black iron plate and flashed it in front of Garen's eyes. Tell me, where is Ahashia now? Bring him to me obediently, and then use your hands to beg my forgiveness, otherwise I don't mind killing you right here. She thought for a moment. That's right. Which school are you from? I am very interested in your martial arts, and by the way, give me a copy of all your martial arts. Garen looked at her inexplicably, as if she were an idiot. This woman had no idea what she was talking about. She just wanted him to surrender by showing her an iron sign, and then she had to waste her hands and give her his martial arts skills for free. Have you read too many of her novels and stories? Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 261. What? Not willing, Tracy sneered. Haha, that's right, the Wanderers are idiots who won't give up until the end. A group of idiots with only muscles. You are actually a member of the supporting Army Council. Garen suddenly recognized the meaning of the iron plate. In Shia's childhood memory, she once heard her cousin Hathaway mention it. The supporting Army Council is the most powerful and terrifying force of the Dark Organization among mortals. They do all kinds of evil and have spider web-like tentacles in the dark world. Moreover, the top officials are mysterious and unpredictable, and even kings of many countries have been successfully assassinated by them. He is the sole ruler of the entire dark world. As a rogue, you must know the rules. Or do you think an ordinary Silver Lantern Master can protect you? Tracy continued to sneer. Garen frowned. He didn't know what rogues were, but he had always heard about the power of the supporting Army Council. Obviously the other party regarded him as a person who was just making a living in the dark world. Forget it, talking to an idiot like you is really nerve-wracking. Tracy waved one hand. Are you mentally retarded? Or do you think others are mentally retarded like you? Garen said sarcastically, too lazy to think about it. Just take out an iron sign and expect people to give up resistance and surrender. Tracy's face turned cold. There are still people who don't recognize my Kingfisher nameplate. She flicked her left arm, and a short green bow suddenly sprouted from her hand. He pulled the bowstring with his right hand and suddenly made a squeaking sound. Forget it, it won't take much time to kill you with my own hands. A strange smile appeared at the corner of Tracy's mouth. What a shame, Garen snorted coldly. With a big step, his body turned into a gray shadow and rushed towards him. At the same time, the bowstring was loosened, Tracy stayed put, and Garen jumped up. A strange sound wave slowly spread, spreading in all directions. The two of them moved and fell silent, just at this moment. Bang bang bang. A series of red fires exploded from all directions. Countless red smoke, like countless tentacles, surged towards the entire gap in the forest without a single gap. Heart of Awakening, the river of Iwishi. Tracy paused her arms, and suddenly pulled the bowstring with her right hand wildly and rapidly. Clang, clank, clank. The continuously ringing bowstrings continuously emit special vibrating sound waves. Sound waves and red mist instantly approached Garin, forming a complete encircling circle, surrounding him from all directions. Garin stood in the middle and closed his eyes for a moment. He took a deep breath and his chest swelled like a balloon, looking extremely terrifying. Snapped. The palm of his right palm was facing downwards, and a trace of platinum gold light slowly appeared. Suddenly, his eyes widened and his pupils turned white gold. Bai Hua cloud capture shell. Call. The wind picked up. The wind made the wood stir. The ball formed by the red smoke suddenly opened a big hole. A large amount of red smoke gathered like thousands of streams, all of which merged under Garin's right palm, forming a high-speed rotating red ball of airflow. Garin jumped forward, driving countless air currents around him, and the terrifying howl of a giant elephant could be faintly heard in the air. Right palm forward shot. Countless air pressures violently rushed towards Trish's chest. The strong airflow caused the surrounding leaves to rustle, as if a hurricane had come to the world, extremely powerful. The sound waves generated by the bowstring were all defeated, and the red smoke ball pressed hard against Tracy's chest. The blazing red light almost turned her face red. Sky! Tracy yelled violently, and instead of retreating, she moved forward, splitting into two figures, one rushing forward, and the other slowly dissipating on the spot. It turned out to be an after-image. The string of the green bow stretched instantly and was about to break. There was a faint hint of silver on the strings. Zheng. The bowstring was let go, and it shot into a silver arc, cutting towards Garin's right palm. In an instant, the two of them took action one after another, creating a terrifying effect from the two martial arts skills of Bai Hua Yunqingshao and Tianxing. The red smoke ball and the silver arc collided instantly. Not far away, Vera suddenly covered her eyes. Boom! The fierce wind blew Vera almost unsteadily, and she stumbled back a few steps. My ears only felt a buzzing and I could hear almost nothing. When it calmed down a bit, she looked forward again. A group of gray shadows and a group of green shadows collided crazily in the field. After each collision, the green shadows would glow with a silver light. Tracy actually used the light of the totem. Vera took 2 steps back, shocked. Trish, who uses the light of the totem, is almost invincible to the Silver Lantern Master. That was the last trump card given to them by the organization. But now they are just barely able to maintain a tie with the other party. Well. A female voice groaned in pain. During the fierce fight, Green Shadow suddenly froze and rolled out, spilling a little blood. The gray shadow caught up again, his palms were like ruby, and the roar of the giant elephant in the air became clearer. Bang! The two exchanged blows again. The aftermath of the energy hit the nearby tree trunk, cutting scars like an axe, and exploding countless white bark fragments. Garin showed his figure, lowered his right palm, and countless white and red clouds gathered under his palm. The gods and statues become one, he roared suddenly, and a huge platinum statue appeared vaguely behind him. The statue shrank suddenly and rushed into him. His body size suddenly expanded to nearly 2.5 meters, and his muscles were all tangled, as if he were a mythical giant. How is it possible for martial arts to reach this level? Tracy spit out blood and staggered back step by step, her eyes showing disbelief. It's over. Garin's eyes recalled the new martial arts system he had just seen, and suddenly a flash of enlightenment flashed in his heart. He grabbed forward with one hand. The pull of all things, the unity of gods and martial arts. His right hand slowed down instantly, and a silver light glowed on the back of his hand. In the blink of an eye, countless blue light points flew out from Garin's body. The light points quickly subdivided and became smaller and smaller, spreading throughout the entire forest in all directions, covering a range of hundreds of meters. Tracy only felt a terrifying and huge invisible pressure coming from around her body. No. No. I won't die here, she struggled to pull the string of the green bow. Raise your forearm and aim at Garen. Squeak. The bowstring is drawn halfway. Tracy's eyes, nostrils, and ears were all bleeding. She was trembling all over as she looked at the indifferent Garen opposite. You, she opened her mouth to say something. Bang. Tracy's head exploded. Plop. The headless corpse fell to the ground. Everything in the woods was silent again. Garen stood with his hands behind his back, standing in front of Tracy's body. He turned to look at Vera on the side. The latter immediately fell to his knees and clutched his throat tightly. His face was pale and he was breathless. Garen raised his right index finger. A blue butterfly flew out from behind and slowly landed on his fingertips. It's really thanks to you, otherwise the other one might have run away, Garen murmured in a low voice. With a slight toss, the fluorescent butterfly suddenly turned into a blue light and shot into the short staff worn on his lower back. After hurriedly searching out some things from Tracy and Vera, Garen quickly left the place without stopping. In the end, he was still reminiscing about that last palm, the peak state of the combination of divine and martial arts. If in the previous world, his battle with Xianflan had reached the peak of human limits, then just now he seemed to have found the perfect fighting method that used the power of the Silver Lantern Master and the use of secret weapons. Ever since he arrived in this world, Garen has been unwilling to accept that Maiwo cannot move forward. But now, he seemed to see a glimmer of light. Running in the woods, he quickly returned to the woods near the sightseeing car. The two sightseeing cars were almost dead, and there were only two tourists supporting each other sitting on the edge of the tree stump, their faces covered with blood and blisters. Garen could tell from their clothes and appearance that one of the two men was the black-clothed priest and the other was the young officer. They were very lucky and managed to survive the burning of the red smoke. Garen was a little apologetic. After all, those two people were chasing him, and he was the one who implicated the people in these two cars. Even though he killed countless people, the innocent people who died due to the aftermath still made him feel a little guilty. Damn Black Sky Society, he looked gloomy. Suddenly, there was the faint sound of horse hooves in the distance, and a group of black mounted policemen were rushing towards them. Garen walked out of the woods quietly. The grey robe he was wearing was torn and scratched everywhere during the fierce battle with Tracy. It looked tattered. A lot of blood was splashed in many places. At the same time, he silently used the turtle breathing technique in his body to converge his energy and blood. His face suddenly looked pale, bloodless, and extremely weak. Just as the priest and officer came in, the officer looked up at him. "You're so lucky." Garen opened his mouth to speak, but immediately started coughing violently. "Stop talking. Judging from your appearance, you must have been thrown out of the car, right?" The priest's blistered face showed a smile that was uglier than crying. His eyes were swollen, as if he had just cried. Garen nodded and sat down next to the two of them, panting heavily and coughing violently from time to time, looking half dead. The sound of hooves quickly approached, and the black-clad mounted policeman quickly stopped in front of the three people. They dismounted and frowned at the miserable corpses and vehicles on the scene. "It's so tragic," a young female mounted police officer couldn't help turning pale and covering her mouth. She had just seen a 3-year-old boy whose head and body had been trampled by an angry black bull. The corpse still had a crying expression on its face. A middle-aged male mounted policeman in the lead got off his horse, walked to the side of the carriage with a heavy face, and suddenly pulled out the white feathered arrow nailed to the carriage. "It's the people from the military council again. These damn beasts," he couldn't help but curse. His chest kept rising and falling, and he looked extremely irritable. "Rise. Report it to the secret agency immediately. Kate, investigate the identity of the deceased. Make me a list and notify the family members. If the secret agency doesn't care, report it to the state agency." I don't care if they don't care. The male-mounted police officer slapped the carriage angrily. A silver light suddenly flashed on the back of his hand. Garin, who was sitting on the side, also felt sad for a while. Suddenly I saw the silver light from the corner of my eye, and my heart skipped a beat. This person is actually a Silver Lantern Master? A national agency? One of the 3 major agencies. This person must have connections to work there. Several thoughts flashed through Garen's mind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 262. While observing the riding sergeant, the 3 gallons were taken away from the scene by the medical staff who arrived and put into a white carriage. Lying on the stretcher, Galen unconsciously looked in the direction of the riding sergeant, but he couldn't help but feel a shiver in his heart. The other party was also looking towards him, with a hint of coldness and depth in his eyes. We'll talk later. A voice suddenly sounded in Garen's ears. Garen's heart was slightly shaken, and he glanced left and right, but he didn't see anyone talking to him at all. He noticed that the riding sergeant seemed to nod at him and quickly turned away. After getting in the car, a group of people escorted them to a small hospital in Madagascar. A male doctor wearing glasses gave Garen a general checkup and found that he was not injured. Long bought some simple trauma and anti-inflammatory drugs, paid the money, and then released him. Galen left the pharmacy and soon saw the riding sergeant waiting for him in the hospital corridor. The 2 stood in the white corridor, facing each other. The cavalry sergeant forced a smile on his gloomy face and held out his hand. Eisenhardt, the local mounted patrol captain and sheriff. Garen Longbar. Garen held his hand, shook it, and then let go. Find a quiet place. Okay, riding sergeant. Eisenhardt nodded. Follow me. He turned around and walked into a small private room on the side. Garen followed him in, hung up the Do Not Disturb sign, then closed the door and locked it. The single room contained a hospital bed, a table and chairs, and a bouquet of withered yellow flowers in a vase. The window was open, and the white curtains were swaying in the wind. Riding Sergeant Eisenhardt walked to the window, turned around and looked at Galen quietly. Tell the truth, are those people here for you? Garen was silent for a moment and nodded. I don't know either, but it's possible. The totem masters in Green Forest are already in chaos now. How dare you rush in here? Don't you know there is a turmoil happening here? So many people died in the conflict in the past few days, but you still don't know how to avoid it. The sergeant lit a cigarette angrily and took a long puff. He glanced sideways at Garen, his eyes filled with deep disgust and fatigue. More than 2 totem masters may die in Listen every day. No matter which side you are from, it is not a good time to come in. I actually don't know anything. Garen frowned. I'm just an ordinary person who just reluctantly left the army. My home is here, and I just want to go home. And what happened to the turmoil you mentioned? What is the matter? Who is the totem master? I only know the Silver Lantern Master. The riding sergeant took a deep breath of cigarette, and the cigarette butt suddenly lit up red. Ordinary people who just left the army. His eyes suddenly became sharp, staring at Garen's face like a hawk. He thought for a moment and stretched out his right hand. Snapped his fingers. In an instant, a circle of silver ripples suddenly opened from between his fingers. The ripples were like ripples, spreading to every corner of the entire single room in an instant. At the same time, it also swept across Garen. The cavalry sergeant stared closely at Garen, as if looking for some reaction, but unfortunately he found nothing. Immediately, Sergeant Cavalry's expression became extremely rich. He seemed to relax. He extinguished the cigarette butt and threw it into the ashtray on the table. Very good, very good. I blamed you wrongly. You are indeed a newcomer. The gloomy expression of the cavalry sergeant suddenly softened. Okay, sit down. Are you a silver lanternist? Traditional. Garen looked at him inexplicably. Aren't you the same? No, that's not it. Of course I am also a silver lantern master, but I am a totem master among them. You don't even know this, right? Riding Sergeant Eisenhardt's face looked strange. Your teacher didn't tell you. Garen shook his head. Suddenly the other party's expression became even weirder. Okay, the riding sergeant pulled a chair to Garen and asked him to sit down. It's been a long time since I've seen a newcomer so fair. Call me Eisen, that's what everyone who knows me calls me. Okay, Mr. Eisen. Garen gathered his thoughts. I would like to ask, what exactly is a totem master? How is the situation in Green Forest now? I can answer you these two questions. Eisen shook his hands. Silver Lantern Master is actually a very complex field, including many aspects of research and application. Human beings have limited wisdom and energy, so we have formed our own different divisions of labor. The Silver Lantern Master is divided into three parts: the Silver Lantern Master, the Workshop Master and the Totem Master. The Silver Lantern Master is the traditional one who makes totems by himself and uses the totems by himself. The Workshop Master specializes in making totems and will be the one who will use them in the future. The activated totems are sold to Totem Masters for activation in order to make huge profits. The Totem Masters are the ones who specialize in using totems to fight. It's just a matter of division of labor. Garen nodded with understanding. Yes, it's the division of labor. Eisen nodded in agreement. This is the first question, and then the second, the current situation of Listen. At this point, I can only tell you briefly. The current situation of Listen, there is a turmoil going on. Do you know what's going on at White Rose? Is it the turmoil in White Rose City? Garen's heart trembled. The nature is similar. Eisen nodded heavily. It happened last night. The turmoil and conflict caused many deaths and dozens of injuries. So we blocked the area overnight and did not allow anyone to pass. But I didn't expect that you still came and were attacked. Terry Jones, leader, what's going on now? Galen asked quickly. The Terry Jones family has a good background. There are 3 totem masters in charge. The Lord himself is also a workshop master and has a deep relationship. It won't be a big problem for a while. What? Your home is in Terry Jones' territory? Eisen looked at it. He asked immediately with a somewhat anxious look. Yes, I originally wanted to go back this time. Unexpectedly, Garen sighed. By the way, Mr. Eisen, you are not a local, right? You have a good ear. I just sent you here from Hana province. Eisen nodded. Okay, I have said everything that needs to be said. You should leave first and find a place to hide in another province. Now go in. Just for a rookie like you, any totem master can destroy you. Garen suddenly smiled helplessly. I've got into trouble with the Military Support Council. I'm afraid I'll be in trouble wherever I go. The supporting Army Council is in some trouble. Eisen also frowned. A Silver Lantern Master like you who doesn't even have a core totem is simply vulnerable. He stood up and walked around the room several times. Well, what you are most anxious about now is to create your own core totem, right? He asked after standing still. I have practiced martial arts for a while, so I should be able to protect myself, Garen couldn't help but argue. Self-protection? Eisen shook his head helplessly. You still don't understand the difference between a totem and a mortal. He raised his right hand, and the green ring on his middle finger suddenly flashed with green light. I'm only responsible for a small patrol area in Green Forest. I'm using 1/10 of my ability right now. Be careful. Garen concentrated his attention on the situation and remained calm while his aura spread slightly, completely occupying the entire room. The unified state of spirit that he had just killed those 2 people appeared again. Although there was no size expansion, he still used at least 80% of his strength. The reason why he argued just now was because he wanted to see how far he was from the real Silver Lantern Master. Until now, he had never faced off against the Silver Lantern Master. Now is the perfect opportunity. The white gold spirit flows around the room invisible to the naked eye. Call. A gust of wind blew by, raising the white curtains, just enough to cover Eisen for a moment. It's over. Garen suddenly felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Eisen's voice was very close, standing behind him, with a dagger in his hand pointed at his vest. Garen could feel that the tip of the dagger seemed to be filled with some powerful and sharp terrifying power. He looked in his original direction, the curtains fell, and Eisen had long since disappeared. When Garen felt his throat was dry, goosebumps broke out on the skin on my back. Apparently, this is the body's natural response to a threat. That dagger definitely has the power to pierce his defense. It's not that I am fast. It's that you are too slow. Eisen retracted the dagger and walked to the side of the hospital bed to sit down. My totem ability is slowness. If you have the core totem, then part of the slowness effect will be automatically bounced off just now. Unfortunately, you don't have it, at least not now. So my ability is fully utilized. The slowness effect is 100 times more complete. Realize. So, when the wind blew the curtains just now, for a moment, I slowly walked behind you, pulled out the dagger, put it against your back, and just gave it a gentle blow. Tisk. He imitated the sound of a dagger piercing his body. Then he lowered his head and looked at Garen, who had a calm face but a somewhat downcast look in his eyes. This is 1/10 of my ability. Without a core totem, you are no different from a mortal. Garen's heart kept sinking. Just now, he had completely raised his vigilance to the highest level, but he still had no ability to react when facing Eisen. If the opponent really wants to kill him, even if he uses all his hard Qigong, he will just hold on for a little longer. Okay, leave quickly. As long as you don't come back here, you can go anywhere else. Eisen seemed to have lost interest, so he simply lay down on the hospital bed and waved lazily at Garen. Last question. Explain. Garen paused. Are you considered powerful among totem masters? Awesome, Eisen burst into laughter. Boy, he sat up and looked at Garen speechlessly. Totem masters are graded according to the evolutionary form of the totem. My totem is also the second form. There is also the third form behind it. Some large hidden organizations also have unique fourth forms, and there are also talented ultimate bodies that are mutated by talent. This little bit of strength is just an insignificant splash inside. I understand. Garen finally understood some specific levels of strength. The common sense that teacher Aining gave him was really too outdated and backward. There is a small night market nearby. You can go shopping. Just my words are of little use. You have to see it yourself and get in touch with it, Eisen said with obvious persuasion from a good old man. Chong Jialong waved his hand and said no more. Thank you. Garen bowed slightly to him. The other party obviously could ignore him, but he still patiently explained so much to him. Garen exited the room and just closed the door. Be careful on the road, and don't intervene if you see totem masters fighting. Eisen's voice came directly to his ears from inside. Left the hospital. Galen bought some clothes to change in Goska, then took the burned suitcase out of the police station and made a note. The people at the police station seemed to have been informed, and they let him go without any embarrassment or delaying him. Garen found a hotel to stay at. Betagaska is a small forest town with only 3 streets and about 100 households. There are quite a few hotels, more than a dozen. A typical tourist town. After paying the room fee for 2 days, Garen took the suitcase and returned to his room. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 263. Click. He closed the door and hung up the chain. In the dark room, Garen closed the curtains, lit the oil lamp, then dragged the box and sat on the bed. Click. The suitcase was opened gently by him. The contents inside are a large illustrated book and some coins and wheel cloths. There is also a change of clothes. Fortunately I didn't get burned. Garin breathed a sigh of relief. This book was given to him by his teacher Enning. Even if he finished reading it, it would still have commemorative significance. There are also these coin wheel cloths. Now he doesn't have much money with him. He reached into his pocket, took out a grey money bag, and threw it on the bed. Then take out all the money from the box and put it together. Then start counting carefully. After a while. 2,457 silver wheel cloth. 56 copper wheel cloth, and a bunch of copper change. I don't have much money. 1 silver wheel cloth is equal to 10 copper wheel cloth, which is equal to 100 coppers. The purchasing power of 1 silver wheel of cloth is slightly greater than $1 on Earth. Garin frowned. It's definitely enough for daily use, but if you want to buy something, you better go check it out first. He found a small map from his suitcase, unfolded it, and searched for parts of the Green Forest province. Soon his index finger clicked on a point on the map. There were annotation symbols next to the small dots on the map, and Garin followed the symbols to find the annotation. Paxi Night Market opens at 5 in the morning and closes at 8 pay management fee, 100 rounds of cloth size, small. I can't go back to the manor for the time being, so I might as well go there now, maybe I can find an opportunity. Let's go to the night market tomorrow morning. Let's understand the current situation first. Garin made arrangements, went out to the hotel lobby, and ate whatever he wanted. Ordered mushroom soup and egg rolls, then returned to the guest room to rest. The sky was slightly bright and the light was still dim in the morning. On the border of the vast green sea of trees, somewhere in a vast and deserted forest, a white disk area is embedded in the middle of the green tree sea, like a white pattern on the green carpet. In the white disk area, you can vaguely see the bustling crowd flowing in and out. There are 4 entrances and exits around the disk, each connecting 4 slender white lanes. Guards in gray robes and cloaks were guarding the entrance and exit, collecting coins from people entering. People coming in and out are dressed in different clothes, some are sloppy and dirty, some are gorgeously dressed, some are exquisitely dressed, and some are simply dressed. At the entrance and exit due south, 2 men who looked like brothers paid money and entered, and then a young man in gray robe came over. The young man wore a hood, with a hint of blonde hair showing, and his face was fair and handsome. The figure is slightly muscular, but well proportioned. He took out a stack of silver wheel cloth and put it into the large donation box guarded on the left. Then he received a number plate from the other party and hung it on his wrist. This person is Galen, who came all the way following the map. He entered the disk area and glanced at the entire field. In the white disk area, there are more than a dozen white stone huts built, with various name wooden plaques hanging on the corners of the houses. Repair shop, equipment shop, totem shop, raw material shop, etc. The stone house is about the same size as an ordinary store, and there is a constant stream of people coming in and out of the door. Garin looked at the people coming in and out around him, and 2 out of 10 had silver auras on them. He frowned, increased his vigilance, and walked towards a stone house. The stone house bears the sign of a totem shop. It is very simple and obviously temporary. The inside of the store is in a zigzag layout, with glass crystal cabinets in 2 circles, 1 small and 1 large, filled with various totems. All were silver, and obviously all were inactive. 3 beautiful girls wearing white short skirts and smiling coquettishly were selling totems to the customers. There were not many people in the shop, only 4 or 5, and they all looked like Galleon, very young. As soon as Garin entered the door, he saw a girl in a short skirt walking towards him. "Hello sir, do you have any totems that you need?" "Let me just take a look first," Garin replied casually. "Okay, take your time." If you need anything, you can call me anytime. The girl bowed with a gentle smile, then walked away to greet other guests. Garen walked around the counter. Each totem is a small auxiliary totem, including mice, cats, dogs, various birds, and snakes. He looked at an eagle totem with a price tag of 250,000 silver wheel cloth. Suddenly his heart skipped a beat. All the money he had on him now was less than 10,000 silver wheel cloth. After maintaining his composure, Garen left the totem shop and went to other shops around him. Repair shops and equipment shops were all ridiculously expensive. There are only raw material stores, and the prices are slightly cheaper. Galen bought a book, A Brief Talk on Totems, and several of the most commonly used standard encryption passwords. Then there was only 120 silver wheel cloth left on me. He went to the totem shop again and asked about the core totems. I learned that core totems can only be made to order, and they are only sold in larger night markets. They are all standard series. The price was also much more expensive. The girl in charge told him directly that he needed to pay a deposit of 2 million silver wheel cloth for customization. After that, it would depend on what requirements were required. The more difficult the requirements, the more money would be needed. Garen carefully calculated the cost if he customized the core totem of the white bear. It was calculated that it would cost at least tens of millions of silver wheel cloth. Only then did he understand how much teacher Aining had invested in him. Near Terry Jones Manor. In the charred woods on the edge of Black Swan Lake. Vined Man and two old men in white robes stood together, surrounded by a mess. The tree trunks in some places were even frozen, and some were burning. It's them again, they don't know whether to live or die, an old man in white robe said solemnly. Do you think this is a small, backward country like Baikyangway? It all depends on the two of them. Vined Man looked at the two old men with respect. The Black Sky Society is getting more and more bold, and now there is a totem master in the second form. Isn't there any response from above? The two old men looked at each other and saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. We have to trust the agencies. The royal family will not watch the Black Sky Society continue to plunder. All we have to do is wait. Understood. Vined Man nodded. Don't worry, although the second form is a little more troublesome, it can still be solved. An old man patted Vined Man on the shoulder. Vined Man nodded, but there was a gloomy look in his eyes. He was not the kind of person to trust his own safety to others. In the hotel room, Garen was half lying on the bed, turning the pages of A Brief Talk on Totems in his hand by the light of an oil lamp. In the quiet night, there was only the sound of pages turning. Soon he turned to the place where he needed it most. Classification of totems, animal system, plant system, and theoretical element system. Animal type is a popular type that ordinary Silver Lantern masters can understand. Various dangerous creatures can evolve into powerful legendary creatures. Of course, the difficulty of evolution continues to increase with levels. The plant system is a field that high-end Silver Lamp masters have been studying. It is powerful and has the ability to heal itself. It is the most ideal totem technology. This kind of totem is said to have appeared several times in history, but it quickly disappeared. The elemental system, the pinnacle totem worshipped by the ghost Silver Lanterns, is an incomprehensible system. If there are traces of the plant system, then the elemental system is a myth with no understanding of its principles. Therefore, the element system only exists in theory, and I have never heard of anyone being able to realize it. 3 series, Garen frowned and continued to read. The animal type is the weakest, but it is also the most popular. The first form of the plant system is equivalent to the second form of the animal system, but the difficulty is dozens of times that of the animal system, whether it is making, lighting, or operating. Therefore, the mainstream of Silver Lantern designers is still animal-based. The animal system is divided into 3 parts, ground, air, and aquatic. The most popular ones now are wolf, leopard and eagle. Various schools, associations, and workshops have conducted very in-depth research on these three categories. Many of the best-selling models on the market are based on the three optimal structural theories originally proposed by the Heath School, referred to as the Heath Doctrine. This theory integrates various totems, and ultimately determines that the three totems of wolf, leopard, and eagle are the simplest and easiest to make, control and maintain. Its evolution is also easier than other totems. This has resulted in the current phenomenon of numerous types of these three types of totems. The following book will list the distribution and origin of famous totems in various places for everyone to understand. Garen's eyes moved down, and he suddenly saw a small box list, which was densely packed with various totem names and the organizations they belonged to. Soon he found the Dar Sula school of thought, and the corresponding totem was the black wolf totem. With a bang, I turned to the next page. The national animals designated by various countries actually indicate to a large extent the main royal totems of each country. For example, the Whiteman Empire, the national animal is the white bat Vitamontilla, the national animal, the white water bird. Garen soon found the Kuwaitan Empire. The Kuwaitan Empire, red wolf. Garen was about to continue turning the next page when suddenly a red light flashed under his vision. He was stunned for a moment. In the skill bar below the field of vision, the three-dimensional image of the fluorescent butterfly has finally taken shape. He took a deep breath to calm down his somewhat excited heart. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes and looked at the skill bar. Fluorescent butterfly, the first form of totem, which can be improved. Evolution success rate, 21%. Potential points consumed, 500%. Ability, poison powder attack. Poisonous butterfly powder is released, and can only be released 3 times a day. Effect, paralysis, death. Garen noticed that the entire fluorescent butterfly seemed to be formulated as a skill. Does this mean that I can directly evolve the totem through potential points? He looked at his remaining potential points, which was 1272%. It seems that the most important issues now are two. The first is to determine the core totem, and the second is to find new sources to obtain potential points. The success rate of 21% is too low. There are too few potential points now. Garen recalled the 3 heroes who emerged in the later period. They were all absolutely powerful mainstays in the catastrophe not far away. Among them, the one that best suits his style is. It seems we must go to Titan City as soon as possible.